The flickering fluorescent light of my office was my only companion, casting long shadows as I sifted through the mundane details of a corporate fraud case. It was a high-profile case, the kind that builds a career, but my mind was adrift. The world of tangible evidence and sworn testimonies felt incomplete. Little did I know, my most important client wasn't going to walk through my door. She was going to drift through it. It started with a chill, a sudden drop in temperature that had nothing to do with the overworked air conditioner. Then, a whisper, faint as a rustling leaf, calling my name. Arthur. I looked up, my heart pounding. Standing in the middle of my locked office was a woman, pale and shimmering, her form translucent against the cityscape beyond my window. This was Evelyn, and she was my new client. She told me she had been murdered. A fall from the old clock tower ruled an accident by the police. But she remembered a push, a shadowy figure, a heated argument, then nothing but the long, terrifying drop. She was tethered to this world, unable to find peace until her killer was brought to justice. She had sought out others' mediums, ghost hunters, but they only wanted to exploit her story. She needed a lawyer. Taking her case was madness. My reputation, my career, my sanity all on the line for a client who couldn't sign a contract or testify in court. But the conviction in her spectral eyes, the sheer injustice of her fate, resonated with a part of me that had grown weary of corporate greed. I agreed. Our investigation was unlike any other. Evelyn guided me through her memories, showing me fragmented images of her life and the people in it. We revisited the clock tower where she relived the horror of her final moments. She pointed out a man in her memories, a former business partner named Julian, his face contorted in anger. He had the motive, a dispute over a shared inheritance. Building a case was the real challenge. I had a ghost for a witness and a series of spectral visions as evidence. I dug into Julian's life, uncovering a history of debt and failed ventures. I found witnesses who could testify to his volatile relationship with Evelyn. The accidental death was looking more and more like a perfectly planned murder. The climax came not in a courtroom, but in a tense confrontation in my office. I had invited Julian under the pretense of discussing a settlement. As I laid out the evidence, the financial motives, the eyewitness accounts of their arguments, he was arrogant, dismissive. But then, as the storm raged outside, the lights flickered and died. In the sudden darkness, Evelyn materialized between us. She wasn't a faint whisper anymore, but a figure of cold, silent fury. She pointed a trembling, ethereal finger at Julian. "You," she whispered, her voice echoing with supernatural power. "You pushed me," Julian screamed. He scrambled back, his face a mask of terror, confessing everything in a torrent of panicked words. He admitted to the argument, the push, the murder. He hadn't counted on his victim coming back to testify. My hidden recorder captured it all. With the confession, the legal battle was won. Julian was arrested, and the truth of Evelyn's death was finally revealed. My strange, silent client had found her justice. The next evening, she appeared in my office one last time. The anger was gone, replaced by a serene calm. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. "Thank you, Arthur," she said, her voice warm. And then she faded, not into darkness, but into a soft, welcoming light. My career was never the same. I left the world of corporate law, dedicating my practice to the lost causes, the impossible cases. My reputation became that of the ghost lawyer, a title I wear with pride. For I know that justice is not just for the living, and that sometimes the most important truths are the ones that lie just beyond the veil. My work as the ghost lawyer had found a strange rhythm. Cases came and went, each a unique tragedy, a soul-seeking closure, but a new disquiet was settling over the spectral world. The veil I had sworn to protect was not just thinning, it was fraying. My ghostly clients spoke of a growing dread, a hunter in the shadows. That's when Isabella stormed into my office, bringing with her the scent of old perfume and the faint sound of jazz. She was from the Roaring Twenties, a singer named Isabella, her spectral form still clinging to the glamour of a bygone era. But her case was unlike any other. She wasn't seeking justice for her death. She was seeking protection from another spirit. She called it the Collector, an ancient, powerful entity that was hunting and absorbing other ghosts, silencing them forever. Her friends, spirits she had known for decades, were gone. She was next. This was a new kind of case. My legal knowledge was useless. This wasn't about the laws of man, it was about the law of the afterlife. I brought in Ilara, the occult historian. Her research unveiled a terrifying truth. The collector was a primordial entity, a self-proclaimed guardian of the veil. It believed that by consuming weaker spirits, it was preventing them from disrupting the living world. It saw itself not as a predator, but as a shepherd culling a flock. Isabella grew weaker, her light dimming as the collector's presence in the city grew stronger. It was a force of nature, a storm of spectral energy that caused power outages and ghostly apparitions across the city. It was cleaning house, and my client was on its list. We had to find a way to plead her case not in a court of law, but in a court of spirits. The confrontation took place in a place where the veil was thinnest, a long-abandoned subway station, a nexus of spectral energy. Ilara drew a circle of protection, a fragile barrier against the storm. The collector manifested, not as a person, but as a towering vortex of shadows and faces, the spirits it had consumed, their silent screams etched into its form. A single cold point of light was its eye, and it was fixed on Isabella. It spoke in a chorus of voices, ancient and powerful. It accused Isabella and others like her of being parasites, clinging to a world that was no longer theirs, weakening the barrier between realms. It was a guardian, doing what was necessary. I had no legal precedent, no statute to cite. I had only my conviction. I stepped forward, my voice echoing in the vast, empty station. I spoke of Evelyn, of Leo. I argued that every soul, no matter how faint, had a right to its own story, its own journey toward peace. To absorb them was not to protect the veil, but to desecrate it, to replace the chance for peace with an eternity of silent suffering. I wasn't just a lawyer. I was an advocate for the soul. I was gambling that this ancient being, for all its power, still understood the concept of justice. The collector paused. The storm of faces stilled. It turned its cold, singular eye to me. It had judged mortals and their fleeting lives for millennia, but it had never been judged by one. It saw Isabella, not as a parasite, but as a soul in terror. It saw me, not as a threat, but as an advocate for a cause it had forgotten. With a final shuddering sigh that echoed through the tunnels, the collector receded. It did not vanish, but it withdrew its hunt. It would watch, and it would learn. The immediate threat was over. Isabella was safe, her light returning. She gave me a nod, a look of profound gratitude, and faded, leaving only the faint sound of a jazz melody in the air. I had faced a god and won, but I knew this was just a reprieve. The veil was still fragile. My role was changing once more. I was no longer just a lawyer for ghosts. I was becoming a diplomat, a negotiator, a bridge between two worlds. And the cases were only getting bigger.